You need a car to go anywhere. If you live in suburban America, which most Americans do, chances are there's nowhere for you to go unless you own a car or some other vehicle. You can't just walk down the street to a convenience store. Other than houses, a couple of parks, and a school, the nearest thing to me is a gas station that's nearly 2 miles away. If I wanted to walk to that gas station, it would take me upwards of 30 minutes just to walk there, let alone walk back. And in the meantime, I would pass nothing. There would just be sidewalks, roads, and houses. There's nothing in between me and the nearest potential social gathering place. Yesterday, I recorded myself walking there to see what the experience was like.
Okay, I'm gonna start walking now.
In total, the entire trip took around an hour, and the entire time I was there, I saw one other person walking, and it was a kid walking around the corner of his neighborhood to get to the park. Everybody else that I saw was either riding an electric scooter, an electric bike, or in a car. I didn't speak or see a single person until I'd walked 30 minutes into the nearest establishment, which was that gas station, where I talked to the gas station employee. If I lived in a walkable community, that 30-minute commute, maybe I wouldn't have spoken to anyone, but just simply being around people and being a part of a semi-connected, non-atomized society is infinitely better than spending 30 minutes walking alone. And now I get it, there are plenty of people who love the peace and the privacy of suburban life, but for a young person like myself, and a lot of young people who are trapped in these suburban environments, it's not exactly the healthiest way to go about spending your time. When I was in Asia, I don't think there was a single city that I stayed in, not just the big ones, the small cities as well, where I wasn't able to simply walk or take public transit to a destination. Pretty much everything or anything that I could need was accessible by foot or within a short, non-car journey. So then the question is, how did we get to this point and what can we do about it? Unfortunately for us, America was built to be a car-centric society. In the early 1900s, cars were mass-produced and affordable, and America was starting to develop rapidly around this time. The booming 20s, as I'm sure you've heard. Cities tore out streetcars or forms of public transit. Roads were widened and extended. Streets were redesigned to accommodate all the cars. Then, of course, there was severe corporate influence, with new companies revolving around the car industry doing anything and whatever they could to make sure that their business stayed booming. On top of that, in the 50s, we saw the implementation of new laws, such as the Federal Aid Highway Act, that led to massive freeway and interstate construction. Around the same time, new zoning laws were established that led to single-use sprawl. That basically means that all of the building or construction was separated into homes, workplaces, and shopping environments, and none of them could really intermingle. All of this made it almost impossible to live a normal life without having a vehicle, because you really couldn't get anywhere. If you lived in a place that was zoned out for just homes, then you had to have a car so that you could drive to the other places like your workplace or to go shopping or any other social activity. And of course, as we jumped onto this individual transportation train, that means that we left other kinds of trains behind. We didn't use or build passenger trains, and buses and trams phased out. A lot of these public transportation facilities were underfunded. During a critical stage in American cities' development, there was now little to no infrastructure for public transit, leading to everyone needing to drive.
Get a little taste test. The chocolate milk. I've never tried this brand before.
That's gas fire flames.
Now here's the thing, I don't hate cars. I'm not entirely anti-car. I think cars are cool. And plus, it's convenient to be able to just hop in your car and have a private one-to-one, point-to-point transportation system. You can really go anywhere with a car, which is something you can't do without public transportation. But how often do you need to go anywhere? Most of the time, you're going to the same few places. In my opinion, the negatives far outweigh any of the potential benefits that could be gained from a car-driven society. Pun intended. First, the obvious. It's expensive to own a car. Not only do you have to buy the car, but then you have to pay for gas, tires, maintain the car, get oil changes. If you don't make a lot of money starting out, it can be really hard to go from no car to a car, any car, because the jump, even for a really crappy car, is a pretty big jump. On top of it being impractical financially, it's also impractical from an environmental standpoint. Transportation produces nearly 30% of the US's emissions, with individual cars accounting for nearly half of that. The other obvious downside is pedestrian safety. While other countries are seeing pedestrian accidents decreasing or falling, the United States is seeing an increasing number of accidents and fatalities. Now this brings me to some of the more nuanced negatives that come from a car-driven, car-centric society. First, it sounds stupid, but a lot of people don't walk as much here as compared to other countries. Some estimates suggest that Americans walk as low as 3,000 steps a day, with the more generous ones putting it at 4,000 to 5,000. Other countries like Japan see averages of 7,000, and other countries like Australia and Switzerland see people walking as much as 8,000 to 9,000 steps per day. And yeah, that leads to people being fat and having diabetes and health issues and poor cardio, but I think there's more to it too. When nobody's walking, nobody's interacting with each other. You're not passing people on the street. You're not inviting yourself into social situations. And this brings me to my final point. I think that the lack of walking is actually a huge detriment to the sense of community that we feel in American cities. Communities that are more walkable generally tend to be more social because there's natural third places or social gathering places created. Parks, coffee shops, restaurants, or even just random meetings on the street creates this underlying sense of social involvement that you don't see if you're constantly commuting from place to place in a car. By driving, you cut out a lot of time that you could be spending interacting in a society. When you live in the suburb, in order to do any of those things, it takes a lot of planning. You don't just randomly meet people at coffee shops because in order to go to the coffee shop, you had to get in your car and drive there. A lot of people don't even go inside. They just take the Starbucks drive-through. Basically, I think that driving everywhere kills the art of casual social interaction. How do we expect to find new friends? How do we expect to find new social interactions or new opportunities to network or potentially find a romantic partner? It's really hard to do any of that stuff when you don't see anybody and you don't talk to anybody. You might see your neighbors every now and again, but it's just your neighbors. You've known them for the last 5 years you've been living here. If you were to live in a walkable community, you could theoretically meet a new person every single day and it wouldn't even be hard. Walking through these walkable communities in Asia, I made so many friends that were just random people working at stores or walking on the street or playing pickup basketball. One of the coolest experiences I had was in a small city in Taiwan where I took a city bicycle and rode to a nearby basketball court. And at that basketball court, I met a really cool kid, shout out Jerry. And Jerry took me around the city and showed me his town. Now, I am aware that there are plenty of places in the United States where this isn't an issue. It's mostly a suburbia thing. The problem is, most of the United States lives in suburbia. It's something like half or maybe even more than half the United States lives in suburban areas. Less than half live in the city and another portion live in the rural area. If you're struggling socially, the answer to your problem might not be exactly that you live in a suburban area where there's little to no social community or social connection, but I don't think that's helping either, not having that. I'm the type of person who likes to be outgoing and I like to meet people, but I'm not very good at it. I have social anxiety, and there's a lot of things about me that make it difficult for me to make friends and make social connections. Since I've been home here living in suburban America again, I almost never see new people unless I'm going out of my way to go play pickup basketball once or twice a week. My normal social interactions are also way down. The only people I really see consistently is my family. Occasionally I'll meet up with friends, but to be honest, it's so difficult and so time consuming that it doesn't really happen much. Everybody around me is older than me, and anybody who's not is preoccupied. So what is there to do about it? Obviously, we can't just get rid of cars, and we can't uproot our entire city's infrastructure so that people can live in walkable communities. I do think there are fixes that we can enact now to hopefully promote better growth in the future. First, we have to tackle some of the main issues. The reason everybody needs a car is because there's no other way to get around without a car. How do you get into the city if you live in the suburbs without a car? There's too much traffic and our infrastructure isn't built for buses or other forms of transportation. We all know the government's not willing to shell up a few $1 billion to build railways, so what's the option? In my opinion, with the rise of self-driving vehicles, I think this is something that could be solved quite easily. Imagine if instead of expanding your highway every couple of years and adding another lane hoping that'll solve traffic, they just put in one dedicated bus lane that allowed for self-driving buses to be frequent and constant and never hit traffic. I know me personally, if the bus system in my city was good, I would totally take it to go into town. The problem is, there's almost no bus system in my city. It doesn't go anywhere, and it comes like 5 times a day. It's always late too. I'm a big fan of trains personally, but unfortunately that's just not really realistic, so I think that something like a dedicated bus lane could be a great way to kind of meet in the middle. I don't want to sound like a doomer, but there's not a lot you can do. I think if you feel that you have an issue with this personally, the best thing you can do is try to pack up and move somewhere that's less like this. Me personally, I want to make enough money so that I can move to a big city with, any kind of public transit or walkability. There are plenty of benefits to living in the suburban area. I liked it growing up, especially when there was lots of other kids running around. It felt like I had my own community within this sub-community. I don't know if it's just me, it seems like that's kind of dying out. I don't see hardly any kids running around in the streets playing basketball. I remember when I was a kid, I could just run down and knock on the neighbor's door and say, hey, is so-and-so home? And we could instantly have a hangout in no time. I guess if I'd have to turn around and put a positive spin on this video, I guess I would say that you don't have to be subject to this poor way of living. Just because you live in suburban America doesn't mean you can't have a community or a sense of inclusion. I think it is possible. It's just a little bit more difficult and less accessible. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Playing sports for me has been an excellent way to get these random social interactions, these casual social interactions. Before I really got into basketball, it was hard for me to find and meet new people. Then I started playing and got comfortable playing pickup, and before you knew it, plenty of opportunities opened up because I opened myself up to something like that. I think the same can be said about a lot of hobbies, and I honestly think that's probably the best combatant we have to this atomized and individualized way of living. People like community. People like to feel included. People like to be a part of something. It's just in our innate social nature as humans. So yeah, to kind of wrap it up, it sucks that I have to walk 30 minutes into town, but there's other ways to get around. It just means I have to be a little more conscious about how I spend my time. If I'm not careful, I'll spend my day completely alone with zero to no social interaction outside of my family. And while that's currently working for me, as a young developing man, it's pretty important that I get some new social interaction from time to time. One day I'll need to find a wife and start a family of my own. For now, I'm cool, but anyways, go out there, find some community, don't be a loser like me, and yeah, hopefully I'll see y'all tomorrow.
One day I'll need to find a One day I'll need to find a nice femboy and settle down. I can't say it with a straight face.